I am a resilient, driven, motivated woman. This is a girl who was born into very poor parents who didn't have a single formal qualification. My legacy is a living legacy. If you don't buy a ticket, you're never going to win the lottery. With business, with success, comes responsibilities, and you can't lay down and die today. You can't collapse in a heap. You have to make yourself show up. Life's about getting knocked down and pick yourself up, dust yourself down, and get on with tomorrow. I've done childbirth, I've done menopause, I've done divorce, I've done love, I've done unhappiness, I've done happiness. I had to live and die by my own success and mistakes. If you can't know everything, don't be afraid to ask questions. When I started business, there were no women at the forefront of business.
I bet.
That's not the way to build. It's not the way to create.
There is a serious reason behind these interviews.
There's £250,000. It's not nothing. Plus even a lot more than that, because you're going to be involved with Lord Sugar and you're going to be in the limelight. When Lord Sugar said to me, I want you to expose, dig deep, and give me good television, what the people don't see on the Apprentice is.
Don't Work Harder is the show for entrepreneurs who are ready to catapult their business forward, because we believe it's not about working longer, harder or smarter, it's about those braver moments. One bold move is worth 1,000 small steps. So rather than those small incremental movements that are moving you forward at a much slower pace, we're going to share with you the stories of successful entrepreneurs who've taken those big, bold steps to move them forward. This show is brought to you by Atomic, and I'm your host, Simon Randauer, and I'm here not only to share with you the stories of entrepreneurs and the success that they've had, but you'll also walk away with the insights of what they did at that exact moment when they made that change that moved their business forward. Linda, welcome.
Thank you.
It is an honour to have you here in front of me. I'm not terrified, because you're actually very friendly.
That's a good start. Don't tell many people.
No, we won't.
Of course I am friendly.
You are very. The reason I wanted to catch up with you today is, as you know, the ethos of this podcast is don't work harder, work braver. And so many people know a lot of things about you. I guess you're probably in the public persona. You're most well known as being Lord Sugar's formidable, trusted business advisor. And I know that you have had huge success in business and a really diverse portfolio. But I guess the thing that's less spoken about is there have been times in your business where life has been lifing. I know you've got a family, you've had, personal challenges like we all have that you would have faced. So how have you managed to build so many successful businesses, obviously your own personal brand, which I'd love for us to speak about a little bit later. But when life is lifing and you're a mom, you've had your personal challenges like we all have that you've gone through, how do you still get to show up and be brave when you don't feel like being it?
That's a very interesting question, and obviously a big part of the tapestry of my journey has not only been the business life, but the personal life and how that interacts in your business life. So I have had 2 divorces.
Okay.
And obviously, my first divorce, I had my fashion business. So I was traveling. I was running a business with huge responsibilities. And when I say huge responsibilities, offices in Leeds, London, Manchester, Hong Kong, Amsterdam, people who rely on me, customers, people who work for me, and suppliers. And so when you have something that really affects you personally, which obviously a divorce affected me very personally, but you see, you have to show up. You have to have 2 sides to your journey. And I might have been crying in the bedroom, but I knew I had responsibilities. So it's not just about showing up for me, although I have to show up for me to show up for the other people. So you have to compartmentalize your grief, and you have to show up, you have to recognize, because with business, with success comes responsibilities, and you can't lay down and cry. You can't lay down and die today, because the people are waiting, the people are needing you, so you have to make yourself show up. And over 2 divorces, I've had to show up differently. I've had to show up, A, the responsibilities in business, and B, I've had to show up for me as well.
And do you think, Linda, that there is something in you. You know, obviously you are a strong woman, but you're a woman who's had success in business at a time when a lot of women were not having the level of success that you were having. And now you are a woman who is showing that you've got sustained success that has kind of continued through, you know, through the decades of life. Is there something about Linda that is maybe different to the average person?
Look, everyone's an individual. I am a resilient, driven, motivated woman. That is my character. That is my nature. I mean, my parents would look at me and say, "Where have you come from?" I can't say, you know, that's me. I am resilient. I found out a lot about me along this journey from a shy kid at school, you know, who really, when I tell people I was shy at school, they look at me, "Oh, you weren't." But I was. But, you know, I was born with this God-given talent, this God-given thing that I'm motivated, I'm driven. I was motivated at 11 and I'm still motivated at a pretty bloody old age today, but I'm still the same person. But what I would say is that talent, that motivation, that drive, that resilience that's within me that has taken me along this journey is something that I have found in recent years, mostly since The Apprentice, that I am inspirational and I can give back. I can't make someone, okay, this 1, 2, 3 tick box, you will be resilient, you will be motivated. I can't do that. That's within me. But what I can do is share my experiences and maybe some of my inspiration, or maybe some of what I'm saying will be inspiration and will rub off on my audience. And that's the part of my life that I love today.
So when you talk about resilience, and you know, it's really interesting that you talk openly about the fact that this is a journey that keeps continuing. You keep discovering things about yourself. So taking you back to that picture you were painting for us there of you've got multiple offices, you've got people who are relying on you, you've got your divorce that you have shared that you were going through, and you said I had to show up for other people, if not just for myself. So if someone's like listening in and they are facing something in their life that is impacting them, what is one of the first things that you did for yourself that helped you feel that level of resilience?
Well, I think a very important lesson is you can't hide from your emotions. You can't. What you're feeling is what you're feeling, and no one should try and hide. Because when you're emotional, it's not like a cold. Oh, here, take 2 paracetamol and you'll be fine. No, what's going on inside you is far more complex. It's far more complicated. And I always say one shouldn't try to hide how you're feeling, because you can't. It's not a case of pull yourself together. You have to go through what you're feeling. But what you have to try to do, if you've chosen to be in business, if you are in business, you have to try and compartmentalize, and you have to try and understand what your responsibilities are. Because if you've got a business, you've already gone a long way in that journey to the steps. You don't just build a business today.
Yeah.
It's a learning curve. Listen, I am still learning, and I believe everybody is always learning. But if you go through trauma or whatever you're going through, there has to be 2 sides to you. If you've got a business persona, you've got responsibilities, you have to show up for it. Just don't hide from the other side, but hide it, maybe. Hide it. Don't hide it from yourself, but you might have to hide it from your public, from the people who are there, who you're showing up for. And in doing so, you can show up for yourself as well. You know, you have to be strong at times, and you just have to. And grief is a process, isn't it? It takes time to overcome it. It's not a 1-minute fix. It's a process. But if you've chosen the path to be in business, or you've chosen the path to actually, I got to heal myself, sometimes the best way to do it is to not focus totally on it. You can't lay down and die if you've got a business. You can't collapse in a heap. And anyway, collapsing in a heap is not what life's about. Life's about getting knocked down, if you are, and pick yourself up, dust yourself down, and get on with tomorrow.
We're going to take a short pause to hear from one of our sponsors. Sponsors help us make the best show possible. Don't Work Harder is sponsored by Constant Contact, the digital marketing platform built with small business owners in mind. With Constant Contact, you can grow your contacts list, send out more emails, organise social media and events, and simply get more done with their advanced automation tools. It's everything you need to grow your business, advance your automation, and attract more of the right customers all in one place. Visit constantcontact.com to get started. Yeah, and I think it's interesting, I know when we were talking ahead of the podcast, I shared with you as someone who, in terms of running my own business, infancy compared to what you have done, but 3 or 4 years in, one of the biggest challenges that I found was exactly that. When you're having a tough day, not having a colleague or a peer who you can kind of almost think, well, they'll run the team today. Yeah. So when I consider your journey, and I know everybody knows probably about your story of the market stall to by the age of 29, you had sold your business for millions. Is that correct?
It was a substantial amount.
It
would be less today, would appear less today, but nevertheless, it was a substantial amount, certainly more money than I'd ever seen.
And does life get easier once you've had that level of success, or did it open up a whole can of worms?
I think the way to understand me and my journey is that actually I never started off with a goal, I'm going to build a brand. I fell into it. As things happen, as events happen, ideas came to me. So the building of the Honeysuckle brand, which led me ultimately to the first selling, was I was in Hong Kong, I had the shops, I had a wholesale, I went out to Hong Kong to buy merchandise that I knew couldn't design or couldn't buy.
Okay.
When I got the collection together after 2 weeks, I thought, right, this needs a label, right? This needs a brand. And that's how I fell into it. What I'm going to tell you about selling my business. So the goal has never really been money. But don't get me wrong, I like money.
Yeah.
But the goal was always the business, the success, the drive.
Okay.
When I sold out the first time, of course, my life changed. It changed materially in the way that, I could buy more stuff.
Yeah.
And that was nice. And being able to have the freedom, what money gives you, it gives you freedom of choice, which is very good. So money has never been my God. Of course, if you have nothing, which I came from absolutely nothing, and there's no shame in that because I had a very happy childhood with 2 loving parents and a lodger to help make ends meet. But also, I'll tell you what else the money did for me. It allowed me for my parents to stop working. I took my mother came to work for me. My father didn't have good health. It allowed me to also help others. And that's been a big part of my life. I'm an only child.
Okay.
But I have, I've got 3 children, but I also have parts of my family that I've been able to help. So yes, selling out or accumulating an amount of money is life-changing. It gives you freedom to do whatever you want to do.
And Linda, have all of your businesses that you've had been a success? So for those that don't know, talk us through current time, what businesses, what sectors are you in?
Well, I am in the property business.
Yeah.
So that's been for the last 30 years. I've been in the property business. I'm no longer in the interior design business.
Okay.
But so I fell into the interior design business when I started in the property business. Again, I guess it's that vision, that fashion, that style that is the talent God gave me.
Yeah.
I could pick winners in sweaters. I know how to walk into a house, and I know how to make that house, how to make that derelict property after we've refurbed it become a home. So, that's something. And I ended up, from refurbing the houses, agents would contact me and say, people might not want to buy the house, Linda, but who did the interior design? That's how I ended up with an interior design business, which I no longer have, but I still have my property business and I still just do the projects for ourselves. But has everything been successful? Of course not. I have had things that haven't been successful. That's the tapestry of life. It's the tapestry of business. When it hasn't been successful, I've cut the losses, I've got out, or it's been a learning curve. For that failure has been a success. Currently, I'm actually involved in 2 businesses, which I still have my property business. Mm-hmm. I've got 2 businesses, both of which are quite different for me, which I know nothing about. One is a dental business for dentistry in Turkey, which I'm involved in, and I'm just getting involved in something else, which is a business that's going to be, I'm a chair of a company where we're actually trying to bring to the councils of Britain, there's broken areas in Britain, there's derelict areas, we're trying to bring British events and things to maybe help the dead areas where the shops are for rent, but also social impact. If you've got an area that's very dark and very a dead end, if you can bring art, or you can bring installations, and you can bring footfall, you can also bring light, you can make it a safer area. So those are two areas which are brand new for me, and I am learning about them. But like I say to people when I'm giving advice, ask questions. I'm asking questions all the time. I'm learning. Something completely new for me, and I don't know if there'll ever be big businesses, but it's something, it's diverse from what I'm used to, but that's a good thing. And because I am always hungry to learn and always take on challenges, that's just part of me.
Yeah, and that was always the question I was going to ask, is how do you decide what is the next venture that you are going to be involved in, or you're going to launch yourself?
Well, someone might approach me with an idea, and I might think, do I like that idea? Do I want to get involved in it? I know nothing about it, but that's never really stopped me. My 3 successful businesses, of course, they're all trading. So whether I've traded in sweaters, whether I've traded in electronics, or whether I've traded in multi-million-pound properties, and the design is an offshoot of trade, it's all been buying and selling. It's all been a variation of a theme. And in a way, the 2 businesses that I'm looking at now, they're not non-profit businesses. They are businesses for profit. It's just a different route to market.
And what does success, because you talk about USPs a lot.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at brands, talk us through how a brand develops a strong USP, please, Linda. I'd love your expertise.
Well, I can only talk from my brand.
Yeah.
But so when I decided to when I was in the knitwear business, and I decided to go to Hong Kong, and
this is Honeysuckle.
Yeah. Honeysuckle. I like an identity.
Okay.
I'm not a believer in jack of all trades, master of none, and that comes over time and time again in the interviews on The Apprentice.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Now, so when I decided to do my sweaters, I wanted to bring pretty knitwear to the mass markets, and that was going to be my USP.
And Linda, may I ask, was there a gap? You wanted
I felt
to bring...
there was a gap.
Okay, so that's the first thing, is you felt there was a gap.
I felt there was a gap because I had 14 different shops, market stalls, and a wholesale.
Wow.
So I was already buying from wholesalers, and I couldn't find what I thought I wanted to buy. I couldn't find it. So I did identify a gap.
Yeah.
And that was part of the reason I went to Hong Kong. And I thought, let me see what's around. But I focused on, very quickly, I went round to various factories. I didn't have a designer. I'm not a trained designer, but I call myself a creative merchandiser. That's really what I was. And so I knew that I wanted to find pretty knitwear, bring something different. And in those days, it was all plain. It was just plain sweaters. And that's what I did. And that was my USP. That remained my USP. Honeysuckle was known for its very pretty knitwear. I was the top end of the low end of mass market.
Yeah.
And I brought gorgeous designs. When I went into the property business and started buying high-end residential properties, I wanted to make the houses feel a home. I felt people don't always have a vision. Let me make my houses, let's do the refurb, but let's also go one step further. Let's furnish it. Let the people come in and feel, this is a home, I could just move in here. If they didn't want to buy the furniture, it didn't matter to me. There was no downside to furnishing it because they could throw it all out. But I wanted them to walk in and go, wow, I like this. Oh, I could see myself living here. I don't have to wonder, how many wardrobes I can get in this house. And it worked because I ended up with an interior design company with 12 people working for me going all over the world. So it works. So sometimes, do I always look for an angle that's maybe a little bit unique or a little bit different. Certainly when I started to do homes, there were show homes in America. I have a home in America.
Okay.
And the great thing about developers there, you'd go to a massive plot of swampland, but in it, when you walked in, would be a beautiful show home. And that's a great selling point.
Of course.
And I liked that idea and I brought it here.
And when you're like thinking of these business ideas and you're identifying if you've got a genuine passion, is what I'm kind of really hearing. Creativity seems to run through,
yes,
doesn't it?
Yeah.
And when you think about the things that you have in common with this business, do you have a favourite? You know, is it like children? Can you choose a favourite business?
The fashion business is my favourite.
That's the one that lights you up.
Yeah, I mean, I've translated it now into homes because I've made like fashion in homes. But if someone said to me, my passion was always knitwear. And I think today, if you put me back in the knitwear business, I still might be good at it. So fashion is my passion, and yeah.
And when you think about fashion then, is it the creativity that allowed you to build profitable businesses that could be sold? Or was it that you are really good at numbers?
Well, I think there's one important word for me, and that's commercial. You have to be commercial. So I always knew my audience, and I always designed into that audience. Never too much one way or too much the other, you know. So when I was designing my knitwear, I wanted it pretty, but I wanted it to be commercial. I wanted to appeal to the masses, not the few. And interestingly enough, the last You're Fired I did on season 19 of Apprentice, I was on the fashion task. I don't know if you saw it.
I've watched every series.
They had to design
I'm remembering
piece of
it now.
clothing.
Yeah.
And of course, the people who didn't lose the task, she designed something. It wasn't that exciting, but it was commercial.
I remember
lots
it now.
of people could have bought it, and hypothetically, they could have got lots of orders. The other one, who they ended up on Your Fight, designed something so off the wall, so limited. You know, no one was going to buy it, hardly. So I've always thought about being commercial. I've always thought about commercial in every aspect of business that I do. And the same goes for the homes. You know, when I furnish my homes, I want them to be comfortable, but I want them to appeal to a broad audience, not a limited audience, because my life's always been broad.
Yeah, but you still talk about the fact that you were like at the premium end, even of the mass market.
Yeah.
And has that always been done on purpose, or is there some advantage of being in that end of the market?
Well, I knew that what I was bringing, if I was going to bring, you know, sweaters with diamantes and ribbons and embroidery, I knew that I wasn't going to be at the very bottom cheapest then. I didn't want to be there anyway, too much competition. But on the other hand, I always work back from a multi-million-pound house to a sweater. When we would design a sweater, I would look at the sweater and I think, how much is that sweater going to sell for? And I'd work back from that. How much can I afford to pay for it? And maybe I'll have to modify the design because the factory might say this sweater costs $6, Linda. But I knew it needed to cost $5 because I knew what was the top price I could sell it for. And you always have to have a get-out price as well. So as well as loving the passion of fashion and being commercial, you also have to have that bit of business. Same with a house. When we buy a multi-million-pound property, okay, so we're buying it for this. How much we've got to spend on it? What's the comps? What can we sell it for? And that's how. It's simple. You know what? The sums are always the same.
And
the numbers may vary.
Sense.
But and the same with the electronics business. When we went into the electronics business, it was the same thing. It was a variation of a theme. It's a 14-inch TV. What are they selling for? What deal can we do with the factories? You know, but in deals, I always say this in the two important areas for me in business, negotiation, relationships. You've always got to make sure that you're all a bit unhappy or all a bit happy.
Explain that. Talk me through what unhappy or happy means.
So, you know, I say this very often, but my journey has been about building relationships. Look, it's a journey in business. It's also a journey in life. You need friends, you need relationships. And negotiations. So my life has always been negotiating because once I designed the sweaters, or my team, or once we're going to buy a house, you know, I had to negotiate with the factories to get the best cost price. And I don't believe in hammering people to death. I'm definitely not the queen of mean with negotiations. See, if you're in a repeat business, which I am, you want to come back another day. You don't want to negotiate the life out of someone so they go, well, I feel done up, I feel aggrieved.
Such a good point.
Never want to deal with her again. That's not the way to build. It's not the way to create. So my interpretation of a little bit unhappy or a little bit happy is that you have to give a bit, they have to give a bit. As long as at the end of the day you're walking away with a deal that you feel fairly happy with, and they're walking away with a deal that they feel fairly happy with, that's the right way to come back another day for another deal.
And like, there's so much solid business advice in there. And obviously, I've got to speak about The Apprentice, which I will do shortly. But Linda, who's been your mentor? Like, who's taught you all of this?
You know, I can't tell you I've had a mentor, because I think my mentor has come from me, because it's within me. Because in the early days when I started business, there were no women at the forefront of business.
I bet, yeah.
I really didn't have anyone to mentor me. I had to live and die by my own success and mistakes, and I made mistakes. So I can't say, you know, I could look at great women, Margaret Thatcher, strong women who perhaps we can look up to, maybe love or hate them, but they were strong women. So I would say that my talent was within me. No one mentored me. Along the way, I've asked advice, I've asked questions, I've learned. I've never been afraid to fail, and I've never been afraid of success. With one success, you want another success. But what I can say now is that I think I've got such a tapestry. And I loved the first question you brought to me about my personal journey. Because my personal journey, it's a long journey, and it can be also shared. So I think now the one thing that which we will talk about, The Apprentice, it gave me a voice. It gave me a way to give back, a way to inspire. And if I can do that, that's one of the most brilliant parts of my life now, that I am able to stand up on a stage and inspire people. And I was asked recently at one of I think it was the Women in Tech. I gave a talk, and I had hundreds of people come for my talk. And at the end, we had a Q&A. And one woman stood up and she said, Linda, what are you most proud of? And I said, well, if I put my children aside on this long journey, the very fact that at this age and this stage, I am standing here on this stage, and you have all come to listen to me.
Absolutely.
And that is the yes, you can. Yes, you can, because this is a girl who was born into very poor parents, who didn't have a single formal qualification, but has woven this journey, this tapestry. And listen, for me, it's still going on, because, you know, age is no barrier to success.
Absolutely. So I hear brilliance when I listen to you. I'm like, this is someone who, you know, you talk a lot about God gave me this. It's like, this is like this natural talent. When you look at other people, and you get to see a lot of people coming through the doors, people who listen to you speak, I know you mentor as well. What are the traits of brilliance that you look for in someone who could be a future business leader?
Well, have you got potential?
Okay.
Because not everyone's got potential. And then, do you want it? Have you got resilience? Have you got drive? Are you prepared to take the failures with the success? Can you ride the failures? Can you ride the bad times and still carry on? Because you can't fall at the first hurdle. And so I go a lot by people, you know.
Potential, resilience.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you've got to look, your idea's got to have potential, and how much do you want it? And listen, you know, are you not afraid to fail, and are you willing to learn? Are you willing to ask questions? You can't know everything. Don't be afraid to ask questions. So you have to look for an abundance of things, you know. Doesn't always mean you're going to be successful, even if you've got all those, but you're going to go a long way to trying.
And what can be taught, and what do you think needs to be natural in business? Like, you know, you talked about that perception of commerciality. Even when you had your very first business, you knew about profit margins, you understood about, is there a market? What can an individual learn?
Well, someone came to me and said they wanted to be in the knitwear business, in the property business. Obviously, if you want to go into a fashion business, have you got a natural eye? That's very important. Even though when you're buying a property, have you got a natural eye? But you can teach someone the rudiments of the business, what to look for, the comparisons. You can help them. You can instill in them the things. You can help them along their journey. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
Experience counts for a lot. And I've got a lot of experience because I've learned it, You can definitely teach people. You can't teach people to be resilient. I mean, you can inspire them and you can coach them along the way and you can help them. And if they get a bad time, you can say, well, come on, pick yourself up. What have you learned from this? So there's a lot that can be taught. There's a lot of things that you can say to a person that can help them. But you can't give them that basic motivation, that basic hunger.
Yeah.
You be hungry now. No. And you can't, if you've got an eye, that's something you're born with, but you can certainly capitalize on that and you can certainly help people if you've got experience, just as in the pandemic, when people suddenly had to pivot. They had to, what skills have you got? How can you transfer those skills into something else?
And does pivoting get easier the more businesses you've been involved in?
Interesting question. I don't think it does, actually. I think you always have to think how you're going to pivot, depending on what you're going to pivot to.
Yeah.
But the very fact that if I fail at this, what have I got in my rostrum? What skills have I got? How can I turn this bad time into a better time for me? It was very abundant in the pandemic when people might have to turn hobbies into a business. Okay, I'm a photographer. I love being a photographer. Okay, can you make jigsaw puzzles? Can you take fabulous photographs? I think it's important when starting out on one journey, what I want to do. What are you passionate about? What do you love? Because you've got to have passion and you've got to have love. It helps you be a success. So I always
sounds
say
like a perfect relationship, really. You need those things to kind of fall back on.
Well, I'm making it sound easier than it is, but we're having an interview, we're having a discussion.
Yeah.
I'm sharing,
And they're the traits.
I'm sharing the traits, I'm sharing the lessons.
Yeah. And Linda, the thing that I kind of wanted to bring us to is your personal brand. Now, when you're building a business, so many people will speak about the importance of personal brand. We know you in the public arena now from The Apprentice. Did you have a personal brand in the business world before that?
Well, I would say that my personal brand, so there's two things here.
Okay.
Obviously, there's my own personality, which has been quite significant in negotiations, in meeting people, in trading. I'm a trader. So your own personality is very important. My own personal brand has come across in so far as, I would say I chose pretty knitwear because that's what I loved. That's what I was passionate about. So that was my personal branding. How I like to dress is my personal branding, things I like to wear. Into homes. The homes have got my personal brand on it. And I can see the correlation in the knitwear and the homes, I don't do stark homes, I do soft, comfortable homes. I never did, my knitwear, it was always pretty and soft. So I think the personal brand and the personality collide. But obviously, my personality is a big part of me and probably was the reason Alan Sugar phoned me up, apart from the fact that we knew each other for a long time.
That's what I was going to say. How did he know of you?
So when Alan had Amstrad, it's quite well known.
I like that you get to call him Alan. I'll say Lord Sugar.
But I get to call him Lord Sugar on the programme.
Okay, fair enough.
I can call him Alan here and he doesn't mind.
Okay.
But he had Amstrad and I had Honeysuckle and our paths collided in the Far East.
Ah, okay.
So I knew him on a business level and a little bit on a social level, but he lived in London, I lived in Leeds. And then he's got a home in Florida, I've got a home in Florida, and Alan is quite friendly with my son who lives there.
Okay.
And I guess when he was looking for a new interviewer, Alan has to have The show is a young show, and I think that's part of the longevity of the show. The audience is very varied, but I would say the bulk of our audience is a younger audience. But Alan doesn't have very young advisors. He has advisors who I think can relate to what he's looking for, which I think part of the reason why he wants advisors who he can relate to. And part of the interview process is, as well as looking at the business plan, the potential and the candidate, can Alan work with them? Can they work with, or can Lord Sugar work with them? Can they work with Lord Sugar's team? That's important.
And it's interesting because suddenly you realise the brief's quite serious, because actually there is someone at the end of this that Lord Sugar is going to invest money in their business. So whilst we can watch it, and particularly the interview episode can be
entertaining.
It can be entertaining. That possibly wasn't the word I was going to use, kind of scary as well. But it's very, very entertaining. But actually, the grilling makes a lot more sense, if I can use the word grilling, when you speak about the fact that at the end of this, there is a big investment being made into someone's business. So there is a serious reason behind these interviews.
There's a very serious interview. Because there's £250,000. It's not nothing.
It's not.
Plus even a lot more than that, because you're going to be involved with Lord Sugar. You've been on a TV show that's probably the #1 show on BBC, and you're going to be in the limelight. So that grilling is important, and you have to get down into the nitty-gritty. And that's what I do. I have to dig down, and I have to dig deep.
You dig deep,
And, and if there's weaknesses there, they have to be exposed, because is the business... He doesn't want to invest in businesses that are not going to be successful. So you have to do your darndest to see this candidate, this business has potential. It might be a bit of a raw product. It might need a lot of, developing and a lot of dressing up and, but the point is the potential there for the business, and is the candidate the right candidate? So it's serious, and it's deadly serious. And so when Lord Sugar said to me, I want you to expose weaknesses.
Right, that was the brief.
Dig deep, and give me good television.
Okay.
Brief.
Yeah. Oh, you deliver on all three for sure.
I did feel that after, and I didn't know if I could do it, but like everything else, I walk through every door, because that's what I say to people. If you don't buy a ticket, you're never going to win the lottery. So did I know if I could do television? Of course I had no idea. I'd never done that before, just said I'd never done public speaking. But if I'd have said, I can't do that, I've never done that, that'd been the end of it. I wouldn't have been sitting here today on this podcast.
And what's it allowed you to do? So obviously you already had the business acumen. If anything, you've shown how that business acumen gets to help others. I know you do advisory roles, you have your online academy, but what's been the biggest change from now being a face? Like you said, you have a responsibility because you are known.
Well, it's given me a voice.
Okay.
It's got to be that. It's given me a voice, and I can inspire people. And actually, you know what? It's pretty nice when people stop you and recognise you. And most of the people, it's positive. Oh, Linda, we love you on the TV. We know, we love watching you. You're our favourite. Yeah, I can't say I don't like it. I'd be wrong if I said to you, oh, it's not meaningful to me. It is meaningful. It's bloody fantastic, actually, if you want to know the truth. But it's given me a voice, and I want to promote more of that. I want to start workshops. I want to inspire people as much as I can. I want to help people in as many aspects as I can. And as I said to you at the beginning of this, there is two sides to my life. There is the business journey, but there is the personal journey, and the two have been so interwoven because I went from an 11-year-old girl to a woman I am today with 3 grown-up children and 2 ex-husbands. But that's been another journey, and there are messages in that journey which will help and inspire people today. I've done childbirth, I've done menopause, I've done divorce, I've done love, I've done unhappiness, I've done happiness. It's all part of the tapestry.
And do you think all of these things and kind of how you've grown, and I'm going to say as a human being, like how we get to evolve as a human being, has it changed you as a leader? How do you lead your teams now versus, when you were running your knitwear business and scaling it?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think I'm a natural bossy boots.
Okay.
Or I'm a natural leader. When I get involved in things, I like to put my stamp on it. That doesn't mean to say I'd have to take over, but I am a leader, and therefore if I'm chairwoman of a company now that I know nothing about, I'm going to learn about that company, and then I'm going to bring my two penneth to the team.
Yeah.
You see, I'm never just happy, I'm the chair, what do I do now? I look at your ideas. Okay, what is this idea? Oh, who do I know that might add to? I'm a person that naturally wants to rise to the top. That doesn't mean to say just tread on everybody else, diminish everybody else, you're going to rise to the top. But I'm a person that naturally, I want to get to the front. I don't want to be at the back of the queue. I want to be at the front of the queue. But I have never failed to recognise the importance of a team. In all my businesses, I've had teams. I might have started in the fashion business as a one person, but I ended up with a team. And I've looked for strong women all my life.
Interesting, okay.
I've worked with men as well.
Yeah.
But I don't like men that I can intimidate. And sadly, I can intimidate a lot of men. But I've surrounded myself with strong women or strong people. And there's always a place for them. There's always a place to hear what they've got to say. What are your ideas? And that's why I don't like people who are afraid to step up.
Yeah.
You can't be afraid to step up. Say what you think. If it's no good, say it's no good. So what? So, I'm a leader, but I'm a team player as well.
Yeah, that's coming across. And you talked about... you said the vast majority of people who come up to you are like, we love you on the TV, yeah. You're our favourite. How do you deal with that small percentage that might not be positive? And I suppose what I'm trying to relate this to for a lot of our audience might even be social media. It might be the post that goes viral and then you start to get the trolls. So if you can kind of share with us, how do you deal with any negativity?
Well, obviously, I mean, when I've done the show, people don't really know the persona. They see me grilling these poor candidates,
yes.
And you're a bitch, and you haven't given... I do get some negative publicity, but, what can I do? It's not personal, you see. The negative publicity comes from the Apprentice. Once you put yourself in the limelight, then you put yourself up for praise and you put yourself up for ridicule. But obviously, what the people don't see on The Apprentice is, I always start, it's never personal. And the truth is, when we have a wrap party or whatever, I always have a great time with the candidates. They really love to talk to me.
Oh, amazing.
So it's never personal. My criticism isn't personal. If Lord Sugar's got £250,000 and I'm put in front of someone to say to Lord Sugar, I think this is a good investment along with the team, then I've got to be able to dig deep. So, there's always going to be positive and negative. I try to look on the positive, and as long as you get a lot more positive than negative, it's part of life, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to love me, and not everyone's going to believe that, the TV persona is not the total woman. Just have to go with the flow of it.
Just want to touch again on you speaking about people. So we asked you about your mentor and you said, I haven't necessarily had like one particular mentor. And on a personal level though, is there someone or people that have inspired you to keep going?
My mother is a phenomenal woman.
I see that in your social media.
My mother's 98.
Incredible.
She's in a home now. She has Alzheimer's, so it's quite sad today.
Yeah.
My mother has an MBE.
Wow.
She was a fundraiser for various charities. She met King Charles, she met Lady Diana, we went to the palace. My mother and father, two very different characters, and I am certainly a combination of both of them. But I would say my mother, with her very vibrant personality, was an inspiration to me.
Yeah.
My father, with his never give up, a quieter man, but more resilient than my mother. So I could say to you that along the journey, and I've met, I have met people that have inspired me. It might have been, when you come from a very poor background, as I did, and my holiday was a boarding house in Blackpool, which I loved. But, I learnt about 5-star hotels. People along the way do inspire you. See, I'm always a person that's looking to learn. And I believe, even at this age, I'm not going to stop learning. I'm not going to stop being inspired by people either. So as much as I can inspire, I can't give you a list of the people, but I can tell you my mother and father looked at me and said, as I said, where have you come from? But I've certainly come from the combination
I can
of
see
them.
that totally. Yeah, that's almost what I was thinking. It's funny they say, where did you come from? You've just described two people who...
My mother went on BBC television with... forgotten his name now, but she was contacted by the BBC. They were doing a programme in Leeds, and my mother went on television and made chicken soup, and they've rerun that episode loads and loads of times. So my mother was a very vibrant woman who had lots to say for herself. Great, strong personality.
What a wonderful influence to have had throughout life.
And don't forget, being an only child, it was all the good things were poured into me.
Of course.
But then they did stand back and say, where have you come from? Well, actually, come from you too.
We can see it. When you look back at what you know now, what do you know now about business that you perhaps didn't know, even though you had that success? Because if I remember correctly, was it 72 you launched your... 72 that you did your...
Honeysuckle.
Honeysuckle,
and I floated it. Yeah.
So it was 1972 that you launched your knitwear brand. Is that right, on the market stalls?
I think it was, Well, the market stalls came before.
Okay.
I didn't launch the brand. That came after. I started on the market stalls. The market stalls grew from me. I left school. They grew from 1 to 14, and then I opened a wholesale business.
Oh, wow.
It evolved.
Okay.
The launch of Honeysuckle evolved.
Okay.
From a trading business.
So bearing that in mind, so you, as you said, you went from the market stalls to having a business that you grew and floated to where you are now. What would you say you know now about business that you didn't know back then?
That's a difficult question, actually. I think I know a lot more than I did, but I still know that I've still got things to learn.
Yeah.
But I just, I've got confidence now. I'm not afraid to fail. I'm not afraid to ask questions. I think the confidence has given me, and I'm so much more knowledgeable because I've been over 50 years in business. I know loads more. But the 2 new businesses that I'm doing, I'm just learning. I'm on the ground floor. I might be on that. I might be just on the level of a market stall, but I've got experience. I've got experience. And the answer to the question is really, it's the experience. Nothing works like experience, does it? So
what's the legacy you want to leave behind? We know we have many, many years ahead of you, but what do you want people to say about you?
Well, I just want them to remember Linda Plant. I think that we want to start on an academy with a workshop now, so that Linda's helped me, Linda inspired me, Linda helped me. Linda's journey was a long journey, and at this age she's still going on so much. Linda was a good mother. Linda was a great daughter. I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a grandmother. I also want the personal recognition from my family. I left my kids when they were young, and that was pretty harrowing. Mothers were picking the kids up from school, but I want to be recognized for many things, not just my business achievements, which for me, I'm amazed at myself. I am amazed at the journey and the journey that's still going on, and I'm proud. I'm really proud. I never started out, thinking, Linda Plant, you're on a market stall with absolutely nothing. You're 10 years old. One day you're going to be on national television. One day people are going to stop you everywhere you go and recognise you. I'm proud that's happened to me. And therefore my legacy is a living legacy, isn't it really?
Absolutely. And, you have inspired so many of us, which was why we were so excited to get to have this conversation. I think if there was anyone that was going to epitomise that bravery is not something that we just have to have when we're starting out. Actually, it's that bravery that allows us to keep moving forward, as well as
you have to keep being brave. You
Yeah.
have to keep showing up. Your bravery is a great word. You have to be brave. You have to be brave in life, don't you? For all the challenges that are going to come at you. Business challenges, personal challenges, we're all going to have them. You've got to be strong and you've got to be brave, and sometimes you have to be bold.
Linda, thank you so much. So we have a bit of tradition. At the end of the episode, I would love to ask our guests, and I'm going to start with yourself, what are you watching, listening to, and reading right now that we can take some inspiration from?
Okay, so I'm reading Lady Tang's Circle of Women.
Okay.
Fabulous book. It's a novel, but it's 19th century China, about a very strong woman and her journey.
Okay.
I love that. So for TV, look, I love a bit of escapism.
Okay.
I love it. So Married at First Sight, Australia.
Brilliant.
Season 12. Love Island.
Yeah.
And then, I'm loving Mobland, the new Guy Ritchie series, and This City of Ours. Great. I mean, it's gangsters, but it's gangsters.
Nice
it's a bit
and
of
gritty.
love, relationships.
Okay.
It's great. And listening to, I love Teddy Swims.
Oh, I love Teddy
Love
Swims.
him. Love his
Yes.
music. And I love it because it spans across the generations. My kids love him. My granddaughters love him. So, yeah.
Great taste there, Linda. Thank you so much. I've absolutely loved our conversation. Really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to Don't Work Harder. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and share. This show has been brought to you by Atomic, the home of epic business growth. Head to our website at atomic.site to hear more about our business programs and epic events.